I love Amanda and the Spagonis quite a bit. This show is going to be dynamite. We're live on every social platform known to mankind on a gorgeous Monday to start the week. I have a feeling it's going to be a good week for everybody that's watching the show. We're excited to introduce you to Courtney, her first time on the set. Nikki Chambliss is a veteran, literally and figuratively. She's a pro on the I Love CVille Network, and Amanda Spagoni is becoming a vet. Is this fourth time?
Third. I think it's third time.
Third time. So she's a pro. The last show we did was just awesome. It's like a history lesson.
Yeah.
It was dynamite. Judah Wickower is our director. He is the man behind the camera. Emily Coulter, hello. Welcome to the program. We think you're going to like today's program. Join us with questions and comments, Emily. Welcome Richmond, Virginia to the program, and Short Pump, Crozet, Lynchburg, downtown Charlottesville. Welcome, guys. Ivy to the program. I see the heat map all around Hollymead and Forest Lakes. That could be yours.
I just waved at Ivy and then realized we're not live for that.
Judah, we can rock and roll when you're ready. Guys, good Monday morning. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk here on the I Love CVille Network. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across Albemarle County, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. We're presented by Keller Williams Alliance on Mondays, and you're going to meet three fantastic Keller Williams Alliance team members, and even more importantly, three fantastic moms. Judah Wickower is our director. He's the North Star of our infrastructure and really keeps us online. You can join us, guys, with comments and questions or give the ladies props by leaving your thoughts in the comments section of any social platform, and I will relay them live on air. Judah, why don't we go to the studio camera and the foreshot, and let's welcome friends of the program, Nikki Chambliss and Amanda Spagoni, and a new friend, and Courtney Dickinson, to the show. Ladies, good morning. Good to see you guys.
Good morning.
Jerry.
It's great to have you guys. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Keith Smith has brought everybody roses.
Beautiful.
Isn't that nice?
Distinguished gentleman.
Nicely done, Keith.
Not here on a Monday, but making his impact felt. Courtney, we will start with you. Introduce yourself to everybody that's watching the show.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me here. I'm Courtney Dickinson, and I was just saying I've been in Charlottesville here about 4 years, and love Keller Williams and the Alliance Home Team. Originally, I got started in education. I was a third grade school teacher before becoming a mom, and then I just kind of got into real estate, was very interested in investment properties, and finally was like, it's time. So that's how I got started in real estate. Absolutely love it. And my two favorite loves, like I love real estate and I love being a mom. So I'm honored to be here this morning. Thanks so much.
It's great to have you. How was your Mother's Day? What'd you do?
It was fabulous. I actually had my mother. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and it's been a lot of years since I had my mom here on Mother's Day. So that was fabulous. We had her here. We had a lot of family celebrations. We even had like a cozy fire at home because it was really cold. And then we had a picnic later that day. So it was just a great time. I have a lot of littles, so they always surround me with love and a lot of those little handmade notes. And you know, I feel like Mother's Day is continuing because the sun finally came out and we're getting roses. And so, you know, that's basically it.
And now everyone's hearing what you have to say on Mother's Day. Kevin and Yancy from Waynesboro, happy Mother's Day, ladies.
Thank
Giving
you.
you guys props.
Thank you.
Amanda, how about you? What did you do on Mother's Day?
So my daughter made me breakfast.
Whoa.
So
That happens every day.
No, I actually had to beg for it, honestly. But that's more because of her age than anything else. And hung with family all day. Yeah, that was great. And then we really celebrated Mother's Day on Saturday. It was a combo deal because my oldest, it turned 17 on Friday. So we had a family celebration on Saturday, both birthday and Mother's Day. And it was very nice. Got to see my sisters and their significant others. And I got a beautiful orchid that I brought to my office to, yeah, so.
Shout out to
Joanna and
Laura
Joanna
and Rick and Carol.
Yeah.
Love the Spagonis if you can't tell. Nikki Chambliss, A+ person. How about your Mother's Day?
Oh, I had a magnificent Mother's Day. And so we actually celebrated on Saturday, and I had my 3, and we went to see the new Doctor Strange movie.
Oh.
That was fun. So, yeah, did the whole Alamo, lunch and a movie. Yeah.
Food
I love
at the
that.
seat, milkshakes.
Food and drinks and,
Very
and
nice.
movies, and yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Seats that go back.
Well, so I was on a row that did recline,
Oh.
but it's the front row, the second section. You got to pick and choose which amenities you want. And
Right.
I go for that, not having people around me thing.
We love the Alamo here at the I Love CVille Network. Well, ladies, where do we want to begin here? We're hoping that inventory loosens a little bit. We're hoping that 2022 is back to the seasonal trend of real estate, of expectations and a little bit more consistency and a little bit more predictability. Is that what we're seeing? Amanda, you want to lead the way?
I think, it's yes. I mean, to a degree, we're starting to see, with the interest rates rising, we're starting to see a little bit of homes are staying on the market a little bit longer, maybe not getting as many offers, but if it's location, if the location's great and the house is in great shape, we're still seeing multiple offers. You're having to do all the things to try to win the house. But yeah, I think a little bit of the seasonal, we're starting to see a little bit of the seasonal back to normal. But it's still hard to tell because we're so in it. To see, it's easier to reflect than it is to project.
What do you think, Nikki Chambliss?
Well, so I think if we're looking at projecting, I think looking backwards is maybe not the right view because we're not going to go back to anything we've had before exactly. It will maybe start to feel more like that, but we're going into a whole new time, something that none of us have seen. Most people who've been in real estate haven't seen this, right? Because it's a new version of something, right? There's always a thing every so many years. This is our thing, and it's our time for this. And we'll get through it, and it'll be fine. And real estate is real estate. It will survive. People will still buy and sell houses. You know what I mean? And it's just a matter of having somebody that you go to that it can help guide you through what the thing is right now, right?
Right.
It's not the easiest time ever. And it's still going to be a thing, and you'll be fine, and you'll get that house, and you'll be happy, or you'll sell your house, and you'll be happy. Like, I'm all about the whole happiness thing.
You've been in the game for, did you say 4 years?
This is coming up on the 4th year. Yes.
So 4 years includes 2020, 2021, and half of 2022. So 2.5 of your years have been pandemic, most ridiculous market of all time. I mean, pretty much, right?
Oh yeah.
How do you characterize your 4 years of being in this game?
Well, everyone told me when I entered, real estate ebbs and flows, goes up and down, up and down. And then when everything hit with the pandemic, there's going to be a shift. And I'm like, well, this is all new to me fairly, so I'll just go with it. This is my new normal. And now we're ready to enter into the new normal. Everyone's talking about, it's going to go back and there's going to be another shift. I'm like, well, I guess this is just another beginning. But that ebb and flow, I really feel that. Feel that with my buyers and sellers. You feel that ebb and flow. You just we have to reassure them, like, it's going to be okay. The happy is here. Our buyers are super excited because, maybe I'll have a little more chance. I won't have to put so many offers in before I get my dream house. And they always end up in the right house for them. But, we feel that. I don't think it happens instantly, that shift, because I'm still seeing, as Amanda pointed out, it's still kind of competitive, and we're also seeing people coming into Charlottesville. Maybe the last few years they weren't ready, jobs weren't ready to change, and now it's like, I got this new offer, I'm ready to move in. That's just how life is, and real estate weaves right into that.
Oh, okay, so I really like what you said, is they ended up in the right house.
Yeah.
Right? So they may have needed to make more offers than they had wanted to, but they were really happy with where they landed, right?
They do. I do.
It was
And I
worth it,
always-
wasn't
yeah.
it?
And when I have brand new first-time home buyers come in, I always tell them, it might seem kind of bleak if you don't get this, but there's another house
Yeah.
out there. It wasn't meant to be. You'll find out something later, and you're like, this was a better location for me.
Why'd you get in the game? Why'd you get into real estate?
Well, as I mentioned before, I had bought and sold and came from Northern Virginia in that area. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but outside of Northern Virginia, it's kind of crazy. And we had bought and sold a lot of properties, and then I got into the investing side, and I was like, this is really fun. And one day my husband's like, when are you just going to go get your real estate license? So when I moved to Charlottesville, I was like, okay, let me work on this. And kind of to pivot to the mom thing, my kids really saw me kind of entering this new career from being in teaching before. And that was kind of exciting. So, and I told Amanda just last week at a team meeting, I'm like, I'm in the right profession, I love it. So I think it's a lot of service-oriented, helping people, which is part of teaching, and it's also, I was reflecting, I'm like, it's a lot of being a mom, is reaching out, helping others, and that's what real estate is, reaching out, helping others, and serving.
Amanda, let's talk to you about the market as we head into May, into the summer here. The expectation is maybe some additional inventory will come on. I think, I was reading this, I think it was on Bloomberg yesterday. Interest rates rising are going to potentially keep sellers in their home longer. So if they see that rates are going up and they have an interest rate now in their current house of 3 or 4%, and they go and choose to sell their home or think about selling their home, they're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna cash out and make some big money, but then I'm gonna need a place to go, and my rate's gonna be 5.5%, 6% or even more. And the concern, at least how Bloomberg put it, was that could keep people from putting their homes on the market and potentially loosening or opening any inventory. Do you buy that rationale?
To a degree, I think, yes, it's something to look at, but I think one of the things that's unique, having been in real estate for a really long time and been around it even longer in Charlottesville, I think one of the things that has always been a driving factor is the Charlottesville area is always a little bit more insulated than what's happening on the national level. With the University of Virginia, some of the big employers, you had the CFA Institute, the NGIC, DIA, and just other employers here in town. There is a little bit more of a constant ebb and flow of people. And so I think, while yes, I think the market is, that could be potentially the people stay in their homes longer. There are going to be people who need to move away because they've been transferred for a job. There are going to be people moving here because they've been transferred for a job. And I think, we've already seen that people are staying in the houses longer. Anyway, that's nationally, that is a thing. It used to be you typically told people when they were purchasing a house, 10 years ago, are you going to stay here for 3 or 5 years? Well, now it's look, are you going to stay here for 7 to 10 years? Mm-hmm. I think that's already happened. And I think with the interest rates, go up and down. When my dad started, they were 18%. When I bought my first house, I had 7.5%, and I thought it was a deal.
6 and 8 for me, yeah.
So it's still cheap money. It just, because we've had so long of such low interest rates, I think that's the thing that is hard for people to accept, is that it is, while they're not really high in the overall scheme of things, but they are higher than they have been. So yes, I think people will stay longer, but I still think Charlottesville people will be coming and going, and that we might see a little bit of it. I just don't think that things are going to be that there will be an influx of inventory, but not a huge amount, because I still think there's going to be buyer demand, and there's going to still be sellers who need to sell.
Yeah, well, I love how Amanda started with saying, to a degree, right? She agrees with that to a degree, and she's 100% right. Truly, it really depends. Like, each individual situation needs to be evaluated based on that person's needs.
Right.
We can give blanket answers for things, and they can maybe be kind of sort of true, but everybody's individual circumstance is different, right? Like, wildly different. While there are a lot of similarities and there are common threads and there's overlap, I have yet to work with 2 situations that are even close to exactly the same. So it really is important that you sit down and you break down your needs and your wants and what you're trying to accomplish in that 7 to 10 year range. And if you're looking at more of a 3 to 5, it's a whole different conversation.
Right.
So just being able to say, okay, yes, interest rates are rising. How does it impact my sale of the home? Well, maybe it does and maybe it doesn't. Why are you moving? What is it you want next? Right? What is what you're looking for something that may come up in the inventory, or is it looking like there might be a slim chance and maybe this isn't a good move? There are just so many things.
What are your clients saying, Courtney?
Well, I think similar, some of these things they're saying they're ready to buy, ready to sell. I really think as Amanda pointed out, that people are always going to have to move. And some people are taking longer. I have to say some of my buyers, they're hearing the interest rates, and sometimes like, oh, I'm going to hang back. Or when things started to really pick up the heat last spring and this spring, some of these buyers were like, oh, maybe hold out. We can't find the inventory. But now they're like, oh, the rates are going. Maybe I better go now. So sometimes it might kind of pinch someone who's been looking, kind of dragging their feet, but maybe it's going to, for some people, they may be like, oh, put the brakes on. For someone else, their situation is completely different, and they're telling me, okay, let's go for it. I got to find it now. Plus, I think now I'm seeing more of the traditional seasonal May. It's a great time. Oh, I want to list my house in May. It's beautiful. So you're always going to have people, if you're getting transferred, I'm thinking you're getting transferred for a job, like it doesn't matter what the interest rate's like, you have to leave.
Bill McChenzie giving us props, Nicholas Herpy giving us props. You're going to love this. Dan Pettit says
Of course he does.
Amanda Spagoni literally says hello. We love you, Dan Pettit.
We do.
Love when you watch the show, Dan Pettit. So what's the month going to look like? What do you think this month's going to look like? What do you think this summer's going to look like?
Oh, gosh.
What's the crystal ball say here?
I mean, the crystal ball is a little cloudy right now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're having more listings come up. Like, I meet weekly with a large group of our brokerage, right? And we talk about what's happening and what exactly the stuff that we talk about here on this Monday show, right? And when I meet with them, there are still people who are like, yep, got a new listing. Courtney's got a new listing, actually. And congratulations. That's amazing, right? Because it's competitive.
Can we talk about that listing?
Sure.
No,
not
it
quite
depends.
yet. It's going to be
That
next
depends.
week, so
It's
not
coming
active.
soon?
Yep.
Oh, it's coming
We cannot
soon.
talk about that.
I can't divulge anything.
We can just
but,
congratulate her on killing it on the listing side.
Okay.
Seriously.
They're
Yeah.
working hard. I saw my client this morning. She's like, we've worked so hard, and they're ready. I was like, here you go, photographer. Like, it was a transformation, so we're ready.
So it's in, how many days in coming soon has it been?
It's not there yet.
not
It said
in-
not
coming
Nope,
soon
it's
yet. It's
Congratulations
coming.
on having a
Yep.
listing, and that's
Yep.
that.
Okay,
Yep.
fantastic.
But what we are seeing is that listings are coming, right?
Yeah.
Our inventory is still stupid low, right? That's just what it is. And people are still buying the houses. People are closing. And they're getting better at being strategic about this, because you really have to. We've been talking about this for over a year. You have to be more strategic in what you're doing. You need to be smart about what you're doing and have good advice. Yeah.
So I have 18 people on my team.
Get out of town.
And we are.
Dang, girl.
And last week we had, I think we had like 6 or 7 transactions. And I have most of my team is relatively newer to the industry, if not brand new to the industry. And they're killing it. We have one that had his first transaction over the weekend. We have one that had I have 2 that wrote offers over the weekend. So it's going to be a busy Monday because I have a lot to synthesize when I get back to the office. But yeah. So the thing that's really interesting for these newer agents that we're seeing along my board is that it's really listing heavy, which typically new agents tends to be a little bit more buyer heavy, heavy, and we're listing heavy, which is a great thing.
Well, do you think it's this last push of like homeowners trying to capture this red hot market here before the rates go even higher? Is that what's happening here?
I mean, I think so. I think some of it, yes, potentially is.
Because the rates being high is everywhere. We're all
inundated.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, to a degree, I do think that, there are the sellers are like, well, now's the time to sell this property because I don't know what the future holds.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it's also, I think it's, well, I need to move up. We're still seeing some move up buyers, that they need a bigger house because they've had some sort of life change. I think that the market is, we are going back to a little bit of the normalcy of like why people are moving. But yes, I do think there are a significant amount of sellers out there that are like, well, let me capture what I can now, while prices are higher too, and the projections are that the increases aren't going to be as much. We've seen astronomical increases in price.
Double digit.
Yeah.
Percentage. Double digit.
Percentage double-digit increases in price in just a few months. So that's got that. You would think that that's going to probably cool some, and so I think people are trying to take advantage of that. Like now's the top of the market so to speak, or.
Is this
we're
the
trying
top
to-
of the market, ladies?
Well, who knows?
We don't have
What
a
do you
crystal
consider
ball,
the
right?
top
We
of the
don't-
market, Jerry?
It seems like this is the top of the market to me. It seems like this is the top. Now, I'm not going to say that houses aren't going to appreciate 2-5% every year,
Yes.
or
Right,
before
there
like
we
they
go,
always
okay.
do. But this roller coaster ride, it seems like we're like, use a Busch Gardens reference at the top of the hill of Loch Ness Monster.
Right.
You know?
Oh, I wanted to ride the Alpen guys.
No, I love Alpen guys. Do you know Busch Gardens?
Yes.
I grew up in Williamsburg. I love Busch
Oh,
Gardens.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I
Busch
love some
Gardens.
roller coasters.
I mean, is
so.
this the top of the market?
I think that we are definitely at that point where we keep talking about it's going to calm a little bit. I think this interest rate move is going to help it calm, right?
That's the prediction, right, that it should, but we never know. Like you said, we don't have that crystal ball. It could go up a little bit more before it kind of settles.
And I don't know that it.
You were
is it-
hesitant. Once you said top of the market, you were like,
I think, again, Charlottesville is such a desirable place to live. I mean, we top all these lists. People want to come here. And I just don't see that's not going to change, or that hasn't changed in the 24 years that I've been a real estate agent.
Oh, that's true.
And so I think that, so saying the top of the market, yeah, we may have a little bit increase in inventory, but I don't think it's going to go down. I don't think there's like a cliff that we're about to go off of or anything like that. I just think that it's going to probably be more of like, we're going to be at the top of the hill and going straight, or maybe at a slight incline rather than going down. I don't foresee it going down.
so how about this one? This is from Keith. Keith is watching the show. We love when Keith asks questions, and a lot of questions are coming in for you guys. So I'm going to try to get to these as quickly as possible. How does the panel feel about the uptick of the ARM loan product, adjustable rate mortgage loan product available, and their possible impact on the market? Good, bad, ugly? Please get an honest take from the panel. Courtney, you immediately cringed when you heard about
Like,
the
are we going
adjustable
back to,
rate.
like,
I
10
know.
years? Yeah,
I know. That makes everyone worried. You're all professionals here. ARMs. Your take on adjustable rate mortgages.
Yeah, when you say, I'm like, we kind of cringe, we're thinking, it's going to be scary. I think there's just much more regulation now, so we probably don't have to worry as like we're thinking like, The Big Short, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, these adjustable rate mortgages, and we're going to see all these foreclosures. I really think that's less likely. I think they've really tampered down and really kind of had more regulation and control on these kind of loans, so I do think we're going to, you might see it, but I don't think it's going to be as cringeworthy as it was in the past.
What do you think, Nikki?
So I think it's a tool that can be used, and if you use it well, then it will work well, right? I don't think it's going to be something people are going to be flocking to just yet. I don't think there's a big enough gap right now. And those few people who that's going to be the best tool for them to use is probably a really small group. And they are out there, right?
I think it's going to really depend. It's going to be really a conversation. It's a buyer by buyer kind of consult. But I think that we as agents need to be informed on what it means and have those discussions with our buyers to make sure that it's the right option. I think with if it's I've seen 10-in-1 ARMs. If it's a 10-in-1 ARM, more than likely you have a good chance of being able to refinance. If it's a 3-in-1 ARM,
10-in-1 ARM is not a bad ARM.
Right.
The 3-in-1 is terrifying.
right, 3-in-1 is having conversations with your buyers or with buyers and making sure that they understand what the implications of a 3-in-1 ARM are. Like that.
Why is someone doing a 3-in-1?
I don't know, but I'm just saying that I don't know why anybody would do a 3-in-1 ARM, particularly in this market.
Right.
But I'm just saying that. But I think that those are conversations. Those are conversations that we as agents need to be having with our buyers. Is what are the implications? How long are you planning on staying in this home? What do we think? Looking at projections and increases, and does it make sense? Because in a certain situation it could make sense, and particularly like maybe in a newer construction type of deal where that they're going to, because they're selling so well, that in 2 years you're going to have quite a bit of equity, that the refinancing at a low, and we don't know what interest rates are going to be doing in 2 years, and may make sense. But it's a conversation to have if that's the right thing for the buyer. But I think making sure it's the right thing for the buyer is the critical and having those conversations, what their long-term goals
Yeah,
are.
Yeah, those conversations. And, our clients trust us. This is personal information. Each one has such a different scenario and a different financial situation and different future goals.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
huge.
Well, I like to take that other perspective. Okay, so what's the thing that we're saying maybe not work, and just brainstorm that, right? So I'm thinking, okay, so is there a scenario in which someone might know they are going to have to move in 2.5 years, full stop, they know this for a fact, right? And maybe buying with that is better than renting for that time? Maybe the numbers work out well. I don't know. I haven't hashed through those numbers, but I think that's probably an exercise I'm going to do after the show.
Because we do have a saying in real estate, rent is 100% interest.
Yeah. So this question's coming from Carter, who's watching in Crozet. How many of your clients are using ARMs to close deals?
I have yet to have one recently. I haven't had one this year.
Yeah,
I've had some look at it, but I haven't had anybody really they think about it for a second and then they're like, no, I would rather a fixed rate. And I think, from a budgetary standpoint,
Yeah.
like people.
How about just a stress level?
Right.
Yes.
Right. I mean, I think, again, it can be the right situation for the right buyer, but I'm finding more people are doing fixed rates. Even with the rising interest rates, they're still going, FHA, conventional, VA, whatever.
So Kevin asked for the panel, explain why this isn't 2008, 2009 all over again.
Why it's not?
Yeah.
Well, I think Courtney said
Who wants to start with that one?
I think Courtney said one of the things that's crucial is there's a lot more regulation in the mortgage industry than there was prior to. I mean, I was in the business back then, and honestly, you could feel it. You heard about, there were different loan products like the no doc loans and the stated income loans, and there were a whole lot of riskier.
And using the home as a piggy bank's not
And,
happening.
right.
Well,
There's
kind of
way
like
more
they were
equity
giving
now.
out, it felt
Right.
like they were giving
And
out
so-
mortgages
so I
like in
just-
Cracker Jack boxes. That's what I wasn't in the industry then, right? But that was the feel, even as a renter during that time. It was like they were just handing it out to everybody.
I mean, it was almost to the point that anybody could qualify for a loan. I mean, that's how it felt. And I was in the business. So, I mean, there was a loan product for anybody, regardless of what your credit score was, regardless of what your debt to income ratio was, and they have really tightened those parameters. And so I don't think it's a 2008, 2009 again, because we have too many regulations. Because of 2008 and 2009, we now have regulations in the mortgage industry that
So
I think.
you guys have 5 mortgage professionals watching the show right now, and a couple of them are commenting.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Daniel McDougall's commenting, and DMAC is a great viewer and listener of the show.
Yep, he
says,
was my first loan officer.
So she knows. Mostly 5-1s and 7-1s right now, ladies.
Okay.
ARMs
Thank you,
are
Dan.
currently 9% of the market as we speak at this day right now. So that's interesting. Keith also responds, a 10-1 is at less than 4% right now. A 10-1 at less than 4%, that makes sense to me. Does that not?
It does. I mean,
Reasonable.
yeah. I mean, to me, that can make some sense. It particularly. I mean, we've seen such an influx of the millennial buyer as well, and I think they're still of the child rearing age. And so, you add a couple kids into their starter home, and that starter home becomes too small. And so it's time to size up, So, I mean, I think that I think that a 10-1 ARM can make some sense. Honestly, I think a 7-1 could make some sense depending upon what their circumstances are.
Well, and this came up, Michael Bullock, we'll get to, he says, this topic is exactly why I tuned into the show today. So Michael Bullock, if you want to explain, he and I have he sent me DMs about his position. I don't want to speak out of turn. Michael, if you want to offer or get any guidance from the professionals about your fantastic situation, please put it in the feed and I will relay it on air. I'm not going to speak out of turn unless you have offered the perspective first, sir. The 7-1 or the 5-1 would make sense and we learned about this a couple weeks ago. Someone's coming to Charlottesville, they're in residency, or they're pursuing a medical degree, they're going to be here for 5 or 6 years, and they're peacing out. That makes perfect sense for them.
Yes.
So there's perfect circumstances where this makes sense for people. We're certainly not knocking that financing vehicle.
Not at
That's
all.
not what we're doing here.
No.
Oh, yeah.
For those that are watching the show. Dan has this question, then we'll get to Sarah and Christopher as well. Dan says, how many of your clients are forced to rent because they cannot find houses, or they can't get financing, or because rates have pushed them out of the market and what they wanted to buy? You want to start with that one?
I haven't seen it forced out. I have some clients that are choosing to because they've got a great rental situation and they just haven't found, like I said, the home that's come in the market. You know, they've been outbid and they're a little bit conservative and sort of, getting a really high offer out there. So, but they have a good situation. So they're an example of maybe it makes sense to rent for a little bit and they'll get in that home. I know they will, especially as things are settling down, it's going to happen for them. So I haven't seen where they're like forced to rent or someone's like, well, I guess I better rent because I can't find a house. It might take a little more diligence, out there, but I'm like, we all work hard and you'll find the right home. It really does happen.
I mean, I think rents are rising as well.
The villas, we talk about this all the time, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and a den at the villas.
I know.
$2,000 a month.
I know, which is crazy.
$2,000 a month rent.
Which is a really good mortgage payment. So, I mean, I think, again, it goes to the individual, but I do think, that there has to be some flexibility with your rental situation, because it's, you never know when the perfect house is going to come on the market, because there is, like you've said, while we typically see like a increase in the spring, and then it kind of dips in the summer, over the summer months, and then it kind of picks back up after Labor Day and all the historical cycle. We haven't really, last year, it was straight across the board. There was no ebbing and flowing.
There was no season.
There was no season.
It was just one season.
There was just one season. And so.
Ready, set, go season.
Yeah. Which timed
Exactly.
well with you getting in the market.
I know, like this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Courtney has an enthusiasm that is uncomparable.
Well, I can see why. I mean, she gets into a profession at the
It's
absolute
yeah.
best time possible.
This is
Right.
a calm,
And
I'm just
her-
saying.
Yeah, this is and I do it without caffeine.
But if I
I'm
got
jealous.
into a career at the time you did, I would be jacked up all the time too.
It's always an opportunity, for something new.
And I think that that's the thing is, rentals are increasing too. And I'm seeing like unprecedented rental rates that are crazy. So it really comes down to, making what makes the most financial sense to the individual. So if it's, rent for a year to wait and see what happens, then that's what makes it. But again, going back to, I just said it like 5 minutes ago, rent is 100% interest.
Yeah.
So no matter what the interest rates are, being a homeowner sometimes, is better. There's the tax benefits. There are all the benefits of being a homeowner versus being a renter and paying somebody else's mortgage.
And before I forget, Dan Pettit, you're going to love this. Amanda's going to love this. Anybody else tied to the villas at some time is going to love this. The model home is under contract. $212,000 asking price, under contract, the model home at the villas. For those that know the
crazy.
villas, that will blow your mind, because that absolutely blew my mind.
I think
Gary
I want to
Yeagers-
say it was like 129.
Yeah, $212,000 right now. So it's finally they have caught up to surpass purchase price. All right, so Michael, we're going to get in. We'll get to your comment here. Unless Nikki, you got something on the mind?
Oh, no,
right now?
I'm waiting to see where we go.
Okay, so
I'm
this
here.
is Michael Bullock. And ARM looks like it'll save me money if rates don't go up too much and or they come back down after a few years. But I have very low faith the rates won't keep on rising because of the crazy inflation. The Fed is painted into a corner. A lot of people feel that way. In fact, our esteemed director, Judah Wickower, has said that Powell is not doing enough. He said that these 50 basis points increases are just for pomp and circumstance and having no impact on checking inflation. And you feel that this should be a much faster rate increase hike. Am I paraphrasing correctly here? That what needs to happen?
Yeah, I mean, we all know he's not pulling us out of anything.
He says off air, for those that are not listening, that we all know that Powell is not pulling us out of anything, and the markets are down.
A lot, as
Hum-
we, as I can see right
Humongously
across
down.
there.
I mean, I look at my
Watching
portfolio
it.
in 2022, I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Okay, so I'm no economist, right? Let's just put that disclaimer out, but.
But you stayed at a
but I played
Holiday
one
Inn
on TV.
Express.
Oh, okay, there we go, yeah, that's actually more accurate. No, but truly, I mean, the interest rates being this low for this long is a gross anomaly, right? It really is. It's technically, economically speaking, a really bad thing, right? And I know that because I took a college course at PVCC, right? Basics. So it's technically not a good thing as far as talking about exactly what Judah is referring to. So of course they need to go up. We thought they were going to go up a couple years back, and then they didn't, and we're like, ooh, just kidding, rein that back in. They're going up. We know this. Now it's a matter of how is that going to impact our lives, and what are we going to do with it, right? Gosh, I wish I could remember what you just said, but you said something about overcoming obstacles, right? This is a thing that from your day-to-day budget, and if you're out trying to buy a home, might seem like a negative thing. What are you going to do with it, right? For me personally, I'm probably going to need to save a little more before I buy another home. For me personally, I have two 20-year-olds who are living with me, and I'm working on building them a life and financial plan, or helping them build their own, really, so that, because they want to buy a house. They've already said, we really don't want to rent. Will you help us buy the house? And
Was
so
that
we're
a
having
cosign?
So it means
Are you
whatever
gonna
that needs to
co-sign?
look like that. Not yet.
Okay.
So because we're not there, this is a probably 3 to 5 year future
Okay.
is what I'm thinking. And if it happens
slippery
sooner,
slope.
we're going to be prepared. Oh no, I would totally do it though.
You would cosign?
With my kids, absolutely. After we have a plan, after they have a good foundation underneath them, and that means working together for them to realize a really good, smart path to take. And they're hard workers, and they're out there wanting to do it, but it's really hard being a 20-year-old right now, right? Even with two combined, making enough money to actually pay for even rent in this area, like that's not really a thing. They would both have to go get second jobs, and maybe then they could rent in Charlottesville. You know what I mean?
That's terrifying.
So-
That's unfortunate.
But what
It's-
that means
it's really
is
unfortunate.
they have basically a studio in my basement, and we work and we make that work really well. And we set up a plan where they're saving, and they already are. So now they're saving, and they're building up what they need to have as a foundation, and they're building up their jobs so that they get their raises, because they already both have, right? They have really good rapport there. They're building up a work history. They're doing all of these things. They're going to help lead them to get what they want. But if they don't do those things, then they can't have that future they want, right? And that's what anybody's going to direct to their current buyers who are struggling with this market is, what's your plan? What are you doing? What do we need to do?
Great take. Very well said. Moms on the panel, toughest question I'm going to ask you guys right here. Dad on the panel over here. Would you guys co-sign? For kids?
Gosh, my kids are too little. I hope I don't have to.
Wait, how old's your oldest?
But
He just turned 17 on Friday.
Okay, so you got some time as well.
I got some time. But I think,
We're almost at that point
Yeah,
for
well,
starter home,
well,
for first-time home buyers.
right, I mean, I bought my first home when I was 23.
I got my first one at
Amazing.
24.
So I was 23.
But when I got
and-
my
and
home-
and my parents co-signed for me.
Okay, when I got my home at 24, everyone was getting a loan.
Right.
So it was way easier.
Yes.
Right.
And there was a lot more inventory.
Right.
So it's a very different climate now. So is that where we're at now, that first-time home buyers are going to need mom and dad to co-sign?
I mean, probably,
Or to bring cash to the table, frankly?
I think that, yes.
We're seeing that.
I mean,
Yeah.
we are, I think we're already seeing that. That, particularly in this market where, the USDA and some of the 100% loans and even the Virginia housing programs and those great first-time homebuyer programs, are getting beat out by conventional and cash loans. The closing cost assistance right now is not something you're seeing very much of, because the sellers right now are holding the cards, so to speak. So I do think that you're going to have, people are going to need to rely on, perhaps parents and that type of thing. But to answer your question, I don't know. My 17-year-old's pretty driven. That I don't know that he's going to need me, just because of his work ethic, his smarts, his kind of long-term plan. He's my long-term plan.
All right, there we go. I love it.
We take good care of
I mean,
them.
actually,
Sounds like we need to bring him on the show.
he's Laura's and Joanna's, and he's my
Carol and
parents.
Rick's. Let's bring him on the show.
He's everybody's long-term plan.
I'll take another long-term plan.
But he's pretty driven. So I don't know that that he's necessarily the one that I would have to worry about. My middle one, perhaps,
Well, that just came on the feed.
who's always said that he just wants to live with me. He may be my
But
plan.
that's also sweet, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So multiple parents have put this on the comment section. Co-signing depends on the child.
It does.
Absolutely.
I
Well, and it
appreciate-
depends on how you set it up too,
Right,
Because
right.
that varies greatly. For me, I'm not doing that without setting some really clear expectations, and that's important for whatever you do with whoever.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're basically
absolutely.
saying, these parents are basically saying, not all the children are made equally.
Well, you know, it's
Kids
an.
parent children differently.
I mean,
Personalities are different. They're their own people.
I mean, I think that, and all of us can attest to this. I mean, I have three, and they're all from the same gene pool, and they are all completely different
Yes.
people. They have, two of them, they may look alike, but they don't. I mean, they're just completely different people. My two boys, who are 15 months apart, you wouldn't even know they're brothers. I mean, they don't look like one another.
We're talking Irish twins almost there.
Yeah. But they're completely unique personalities, and they have completely different views on money, on real estate, just since they grew up around it. But they have completely different viewpoints, and so I do. It depends on the child.
Anything you guys want to add?
Okay, so I do want to add to this conversation. It's kind of related. So I feel like, because I know we're both Gen X, right? I don't know where you land, and you don't have to speak up if you don't want to. But I feel like, we're on the lower end of Gen X, right? So I'm thinking a lot of people that are in that Gen X have parents who are getting a little older, who have kids who are getting a little older, and finding that life is not the same life that it was in 1998 when I graduated high school, right? It is harder, right?
Or college.
Period. I think it is harder. The deck is stacked a little more against those entering the workforce right now, those entering the adult life, right? So I think there is
don't you
also a
think-
lot more room
Didn't
for.
every generation say that?
Nope.
You don't think
I
every
don't
generation
think so.
said that?
I think when I graduated high school it was a lot easier, period. And I think if somebody is not thinking that it was, I don't know. I don't know what you're looking at.
Well, are you strictly associating that with cost of housing?
No.
Or
I think
student
life
debt?
period. I think life period. I think the job opportunities out there. I think that the way employers treat employees. I think that the entire way society has grown has made it harder for those who are entering adulthood. And I think that a lot of parents have shifted wonderfully in equipping those kids and helping them with that. And oftentimes having a basement available, truly. But also that generation is now, you've got parents who either don't want to keep taking care of a house or are not able to, and then you have adult children who might need a little extra support. So now you're in a situation where you might have more generational housing. And that is something that I would be surprised if we don't see a little more of. And it can be beneficial, because how many incomes is that potentially now supporting one household, that if the house is built right, if you're running it well, there's a lot of opportunity there. I think our American society as a whole has suffered because we have not been more open to that in the past.
I mean, I live in a multi-generational home. I got my parents and my kids in my house.
Yeah.
And when the kids and I moved in initially, it was on a temporary basis, and 13 years later, we're still there.
It's great.
But I will tell you, it has its own challenges. But what it kept boiled down to is every time we looked at separating, for me to buy a house, for my parents to downsize,
Didn't make sense.
it didn't make any financial sense.
Right.
Where we have a house that's big enough to accommodate all of us, we live in a nice neighborhood, in a nice house, in a good school district, and all of the things that, all of the things that you look for when you're searching for a home. And we had a yard and all those things, the amenities for my kids, and it just never made financial sense for us to, and we've made it work. And now our roles have changed a bit. I moved in because I needed financial help. at the time, and now that is shifted, and that I'm carrying more of the financial burden of the house and that type of thing. But, you know, it's working. And I do think, you know, I am Italian, and Italians tend to do the multi-generational thing.
You guys love being around family.
And so, but you know, I mean, my dad's dad. I mean, it was a my dad grew up in a multi-generational home. My grandfather before him, you know, like, and there's something to be said from that. And I mean, I can't tell you how unique it is for my children to have their grandfather there all the time as a big part of their grandmother.
And how amazing is that?
And it's amazing. I mean, my dad goes on all of my daughter's soccer trips. Like, he goes to every one of her games, away or home. You know, my mom is the, you know, make sure everybody is doing, you know, she's so the mom, and even to me too, but like to my kids as well, like making sure we're all on the same page, that we all of our schedules coordinate. I mean, we all have our different roles, and it works, and
it's awesome.
Yeah.
We see that. I think our inventory speaks to this happening more often. You know, where I live in Johnson Village, just like I see these like two people that are getting elderly in these big old homes, and I'm like, I think we're gonna have to see more multi-generational families purchasing these homes together. So maybe it's not a co-signing, maybe it's actually, we're going in, we're purchasing this together.
Right.
And we're gonna help you, and there's a give and take, you know, granddad gets to be with the grandkids, and like, you know, you're there to support each other.
Yeah.
So Neil Williams, first, this topic is resonating with people. Neil Williamson, we'll get to your comment. Do you ladies also believe that this is the hardest time, economic climate, for a generation to start, say, real life?
Well, we've heard that kids are taking longer to develop. You know, I don't know, I can't speak. My kids are 13 down to age 4, so I'm sort of terrified for what's coming, but we're also thinking, you know, preparing, and I've been told that kids are just taking longer, and sometimes they might need a little more outpatient support, or they might need a little more there, but yeah, it's hard to say.
What do you think, Amanda?
I mean,
You buy that?
Depends on the kid, right?
I think it depends on the kid. I think I have, you know, again, I have 3 very distinct personalities. I think my oldest, I don't think we're going to have any failure to launch with him. My middle one, you know, he struggles a little bit more, but I think he too has the potential to, you know, he's only a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
I was completely different as a freshman in high school than I was as a senior in high school. And I think, you know, he has some time yet. And then my 12-year-old, I mean, we got a long way to go with her. we're still in the middle of, you know, 12-year-old girldom.
You got a whole other thing ahead of you right now.
So we're still figuring. She's still figuring out who her what her personality is. I mean, I think all 3 of them are to a degree. But yes, I do think it's hard. I mean, I think with society the way it is, it's different than when we were in high school. I mean, you know, we laugh. It's like, you know, I can look at their grades at any time online, and I have been known to do the screenshot and the text, "What's this?" You know, my parents could never do that. I would go and intercept the mail on Friday and hold it until Monday, you know, like, so that they didn't see the report card. But then also with Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, there is so much more eyes on. That I think that, you know, it's harder, and it's harder for them to synthesize, I think, too, who they are, because, you know, they can put out who they are and they can get slammed for it.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's such a, I mean, that's stress alone. And I mean, even good things. I mean, I'm not even talking about, you know, the bullying and that type of thing. I'm just talking about, like, you know, how you fall politically, or how you know, like cheering on a you know, a team, you know, saying you're a Tar Heel when you're in Wahoo country type of thing. I mean, but there are people that react to that stuff, and I think that it's much harder to live under that microscope than it was, because there wasn't a microscope as
Yeah.
much
Right,
when we
right.
were teenagers.
Well, and even that microscope leans even further, because what if you post something stupid in high school? Everybody's employer, as you're hiring, goes and checks out people's social media,
Right.
And that's there, and sometimes those things can be held against a person. Sometimes, honestly, they should be, but sometimes they shouldn't, and they are, right? And that's a really hard line, I think, to walk sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, and my oldest, I'm sorry, I keep harping on him, but he just got into a leadership thing, and I can't talk more about it than that. But he's
Yep.
got into this leadership thing, and one of the things as a part of this
He
leadership
needs
is
to host a show on this
he-
network.
he's-
This guy
he's
sounds like a
coming-
rock
he's-
star.
He's coming. One of the rules of it is he has to go back and like take all of his. He has to go through his social media and remove things that show how he falls politically. Or that could be construed as political, and so that when he goes to the thing, that it's nobody
He's
knows.
neutral.
He's neutral.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because the whole thing is to learn how to synthesize.
Oh, that's
synthesize
perfect
that.
for
So, like,
your oldest. Oh my gosh, Amanda.
it is perfect. And so anyway, but you said it before we went on air, that this will live on the internet forever.
Forever. I've learned that the hard way.
That's something that I think we're all having to teach our kids. It's something that lives forever if it's on the internet, and we didn't have that. I mean, we had AOL with the dial-up dial tone, and you might have those, chat rooms or
Yeah.
whatever.
AIM.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was slow, and
Yeah.
you didn't stay in there for very
Right.
long because it
No.
took forever. But we didn't have the scrutiny
Yeah.
that kids today have. So I think it's a lot
To
harder.
be the eternal optimist, to bring it back. I think when kids like your son, like he's a great example, when there are these challenges, some kids are going to rise up and really shine.
For sure.
And in a world of social media and kids are feeling this pressure, there's going to be kids that are going to, and I see some of them, they're gems, like I've had them as babysitters for my little kids. I'm like, they can look me in the eye, they can have a conversation, they're working jobs, they're doing well. There are some kids that are really going to shine and learn how to navigate the adult world in a way that maybe some of their peers might not. So it's an opportunity for someone to really, like you said, like
Oh,
your
it
children,
totally
they're working
is.
hard, they're learning
Yes.
to budget. Like
Yeah.
some of these challenges, just like I think of like our grandfathers in World War II, some of these challenges made them stronger and made them these great people that they are today. So,
I 100%
sure.
agree with that. And I think part of this, just like how we're shifting conversations with our buyers, when we're talking about our children, I would say let's work on how we word these things, because it's not a matter of society being harder and our kids suck at it. It's not that at all. Our kids are amazing, just like our parents think their kids were amazing. Hint, hint. They're amazing. It's not that, life is harder and our kids are not doing well with it. It's that life is harder. Kids are stepping up to
Yeah.
it. And yet there are still obstacles that are harder for them to overcome. There are metrics in life that are harder for them to achieve than what we had before. And that's life. It's ever changing. This is not a new thing. It will happen again and again, and it has for forever, right?
Yeah.
So, and just like with our buyers, it all comes full circle. It's a different market. It might be a little harder, but I'm not telling anybody out there who wants to own a home that they should give up or roll over, go cry on their pillow. Don't do those things, or do those things and then get up and go after it, right? Because sometimes you do need to go cry on a pillow.
So we have a ton of comments coming in here. Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum. We love you, Neil Williamson. Can't wait to see you on Wednesday for your function, your meet and greet. He says this, two comments for you guys. What price point is the first-time home buyer price point now? Courtney, we'll start with you on that one. He also adds this comment as well about social media. Well, first, what he says about social media, societal changes, social media have made life harder, but unemployment numbers allow new entrants more opportunity than in the late 1980s. Ask any employer how hard it is to hire a great worker now. There are jobs out there. So he's talking about the opportunity of this generation coming to market where there's more jobs out there as opposed to previous generations. So why don't we talk starter home or first-time home buyer and what is that price point?
I mean, I've seen it change just like the first few years in the business. Everyone's like, wow, the 350 to 450, this is like the sweet spot. And I'd get calls and people, oh, this is around where I have a great mortgage broker and should approve them for this amount. And now it does feel, I'm seeing it's more like, well, we need to allow 50,000 more just so we have some room to negotiate. So one of the strategies is to start a little lower than you were thinking, just so you have room to kind of bid up. So we're still seeing that. Are we always gonna have to use that? No, probably not. That's what we're finding. That's what I'm finding with my new first-time home buyers.
So what are we talking like? I mean, can you find a home under 3 in Central Virginia? I mean, Buckingham County you can.
If you have to drive a little,
Yeah.
you might have to drive. There's some homes out in Greene County and Nelson County and Fluvanna that
Below
are still
3.
below 3.
Okay.
There are.
Is that the first-time home buyer market?
It is. Who knows what the first time home buyer? I mean, the villas. We've talked about the villas some.
There's not even units on the villas
well,
on the market now.
Right.
It's freaking crazy.
It is. It's crazy.
You couldn't give those away.
I know. I was on the sales team.
Yeah. She helped sell me my first place. That's a true story.
That's great.
But I think there is not a first-time home buyer product that you're really seeing. There's not a community where you can go and it's a first-time home buyer product in Charlottesville, Albemarle proper, as you would characterize it. So lower, under 3. There are homes out there for those buyers, but there's no community where you can drive, and there's different levels of homes or different levels of where you can definitely find the first-time home buyer product. So yeah, you have to drive, unfortunately.
Is first-time home buyer Waynesboro, Augusta County?
It could
I
be.
mean-
That is helpful.
Can be
It does for
standard.
some, yeah.
It does.
But there's not one answer to that, because really, first-time home buyer, it could be that their price point needs to be a little higher right now, depending on where they want to go.
Right.
So if you're looking for Charlottesville, outer Charlottesville ring that's Albemarle County, then you're just looking at, as a first-time home buyer, higher price point, having a little more down payment ready. Take that time and get your credit score to be immaculate. It really does not take that much work and effort to improve your credit score, and it makes a big difference for all sorts of things, especially your mortgage rate. Also, it helps your insurance. I'm just saying.
Devil's advocate with you.
Yeah, go for it.
Someone, first-time home buyer with immaculate credit, will they not still lose the battle to a lower credit competitor that has a deeper cash position?
So probably, most likely, and they're not going to overlap with someone on every home they go after, because they're going to be strategic about this. They're going to be fast. They're going to be strategic about how they put in their offer, because they know what they're competing with and they want a house. If they're not able to do those things for whatever reason, then that's a whole different conversation, right?
What do you guys think, ladies? Good take.
Yeah, I think
agree.
the strategic is key, and
Yeah.
you just look for, well, how can I win? Let's look at it, what does the seller need? And those first-time home buyers, they're being really well educated, like, here's what you need to play, here's what you need to win. To win that dream home.
I think one of the things that we really stress, I know amongst my team, amongst Keller Williams in general, and realtors everywhere, are really, it's communication. It's communicating with the other agent. It's communicating with your buyers. It's making sure that everybody understands what the situation is, and it's making sure that when you're talking to buyers, what's your strategy, what's your plan, what are you comfortable with, and if we are seeing where home inspections are being waived, and the appraisal gap deal, and all those kind of things. But, it ultimately boils down to whether the buyer is comfortable, but they need to understand the implications of all of those different things. And it's our job as a realtor to make sure that they understand what those implications are, and what makes the most sense for that particular buyer. But it's about communication and, contacting the other agent. What is important to the seller? And it may not be cash necessarily. It may be that they need to stay a little bit longer because they need to buy a house. It may be that now it may be that it's more about who knows. It could be about a million different things. But finding out from the other agent what's important to the seller, I think is crucial, before you're making an offer, to find out, what's the best strategy, and then you can talk about what are your buyers comfortable with.
So we'll try to get to as many comments as possible, guys. The hour is absolutely flown by right now. Kevin Higgins has 2 comments. He's watching in Greenwood. How has working from home impacted the commercial real estate market? Do you see a potential of commercial buildings transforming to residential living? The second comment he has, I think the silver lining of multi-generational homes is that families will become stronger, and the concept of what neighborhoods really mean comes back in a big way. Kids need families, and kids need other kids. I think that's going to get us through this pandemic and more. You guys want to start on these 2 topics?
Okay, so I think that, please correct me if I'm incorrect, but none of us at this table have really worked a lot in commercial. And what I have seen from the brokerage level view is that the commercial deals are still happening. From my experience from when we've talked about this in the past in the show, like in the very recent past, the commercial industry is still there. It's still happening. It's still
I got a wait list on this
moving.
building.
Right,
Yeah,
yes,
literally
right?
a wait list for tenants.
So,
And
wow.
they're literally, 1 or 2 come in every week, and I say, look, we're completely full. I will keep your name on a wait list. And then I explain to them the wait list is this many people deep, and they say, please add my name to your name,
Oh, wow.
to your wait list.
Even after,
Yeah.
wow.
Absolutely.
And I will say, even as like from our business perspective, as a brokerage during COVID, we actually tried to downsize a little bit because of just this, everyone working from home. And we very quickly realized that was not a thing.
Working from home,
And-
I hate to say this, I don't want to piss anybody off. Working from home sucks.
And
I
that
don't know if you
varies.
guys have this here. I want some separation of church and state. Has anyone ever tried to do a Zoom call with your kid in the background screaming? That's not easy to do. And a little separation, and I love my wife dearly, but a little bit of separation there from the day
Yes.
where you come and see each other afterwards. Sometimes that's good for things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I cannot agree
I
more.
totally agree. Like I would be on a Zoom call, and I'd have the note on the door. My
Yeah.
daughter would come in anyway
Right.
and stand behind and mouth to me.
Actually, I've been in Zooms with you where that's happened a few times. I
Or like
totally
the dogs
know.
barking, or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get a
it's just-
surprise visitor at the door. It's more
Yeah.
stress.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Courtney, you have how many children?
5.
And they are 13 and lower.
Down to
What's the
4.
youngest?
4.
Oh my! Oh, down to
Could
4.
you work from home?
Okay, so that's my question: is how did Zoom life working from home work for you?
Zoom, we were doing, so my husband has worked from home for a long time, and he's got a nice little office way on the top level. We live in town, we live in Johnson Village, and so we bought the house knowing this is where your office is gonna be. I have to be super flexible. I drive all over Charlottesville all day, driving to schools you can imagine, and there were some rough times when we were all doing schooling at home, right? Remember, everyone was doing
Yeah.
schooling.
Yes.
I'm on Zooms, you're trying to talk to a client. I have already had to this is my friend, lock the bathroom door to talk to a client, or, hit that Zoom pause, or so you're not on the video. So we had to be flexible, but it was rough. For us, working from home, like my husband and I, that's fine, but when you add school in the mix and children that really needed.
Did you have the bandwidth, internet-wise, to accommodate all that?
Sometimes it was rough because we would, I think we had just switched to Ting, so it was.
See,
a
we
little
have
better.
Ting here.
Yeah, so it was a little better, but there were times when you would get this muddled, muddled thing, because
The
we had
buffering.
we'd have 3-4 Zooms going on at a time or whatever. That was rough, and finding enough space for everyone. So it was rough.
And most online schooling require that you have your video going, right?
Yeah.
There are
Remember,
rare
our kids
exceptions to
are
that.
younger, so I had to sort of be there with them. I couldn't always just plop them on a Zoom and be like, okay, mom's upstairs on hers. I'd sort of be nearby, and then I'd be on my call or whatever there. So yes, it was quite a unique challenge. And back to the commercial real estate, offices, because I do predict that we will see that in some areas, like my husband's office in DC, this huge firm, nobody goes in. And I can't imagine how much they're paying for that it will change. Some of these offices, I think, there's like I said, when there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. So I think there's an opportunity for new
But do you-
tenants, but we haven't seen it here so much. We needed that space. It was rough, even, coming in the office, it was
Yes.
I can't find a quiet area, because in our office, we have a lot of talkers, realtors, we have a lot.
No.
And so we all need space, like at home where the kids need space, mom.
Who's leading that talking charge?
Yeah, so.
There's
yeah.
a lot of us.
So we need
That's
space.
why we have another floor that's quieter.
That's right.
So my question about that office in DC, though, do you think there's going to be someone ready to swipe it up, though? because that's where that makes a difference. Yes, some people are shifting, but others are growing to the point where they really need more space. And DC is an area where you only have so much space that's available.
Oh, yeah, and when you have density, and especially in Charlottesville, we have the 10-point-miles. I mean, like you said, you have a wait list. If there's a density area, you're going to have someone that's going to need to buy that.
Yeah.
So a good example of this is Seminole Square Shopping Center. The owners of Seminole Square Shopping Center are looking to convert the shopping center to residential. And that puts in perspective maybe the shift of shopping centers, especially, I don't want to call it an afterthought shopping center, but not like the top tier shopping centers looking for new identities or a way to drive revenue. Seminole Square obviously has a lot of competition with Barracks Road and Stonefield, which is within half a mile of Seminole Square. So that's one good example. Sarah has this comment: what is the advice the panel would give to a family like ours who is looking to buy homes and has lost out on 5 different offers and now has its lease up for renewal with 45 days left?
Ooh, 45 days.
Ooh, it goes back to that strategy we're talking about.
I would say renew the lease. I hate to say that.
Well-
And I'm not trying to be, I'm empathetic to their plight.
Well,
You might need
I
to
think
first.
one of the things that's important as a former property manager, I think one of the things to do is find out what's the cost, if there is a way to break a lease, if you find something, like what's that cost? And if you know that going into a renewal, you know what the implications are going to be if you find the house in month 13th. Because I guarantee you, that's when it's going to happen.
Murphy's Law.
Because
Murphy's Law.
that typically is what, that you sign the renewal and then the perfect house comes
Absolutely.
on. So it's knowing what that financial cost is, because there is going to be a financial cost, as it should be, because the landlord is going to be,
It's a business.
it's a business,
Yeah.
and the landlord is going to be looking at, well, I'm going to have to carry this apartment for a
Yes.
certain amount of time to find another renter. And particularly if you're going beyond August, when you're looking in the fall, things sit on the rental market is
Well,
not as hot here.
But that's in the past, right? So
Right.
we're in a new market. So first off, let's walk that further back. Yes, ask about what that lease break situation is, or just look at your current lease. It should be in there.
It should be,
right?
yes.
I mean,
So
45 days,
hold
she's
on.
probably past the renewal term already.
Well, but hold
I mean,
on.
It
Let's walk
auto
it back.
renewals there.
Let's walk it back. If it hasn't auto renewed,
It definitely does.
What about? But if it hasn't yet, right? 45 days. Why not ask what your options are before that? Can you do a 3-month lease? Can you do a 6-month
Right.
lease? If you don't ask the questions, the answer is always no.
Right, okay.
Find out.
Okay, I'll throw this out to you. Throw this out to the listeners. With our leases, the boiler, which is a boilerplate stock lease that most people use, the renewal period is 90 days prior to expiration. And you have to acknowledge to the landlord whether you're going to stay or not. And if you don't do it at the 90-day
Then it
marker,
auto-renews.
it auto-renews. So if they're at the 45-day clip, I would bet they're already in auto-renew period. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here.
Most likely.
Do you not agree with that?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And the big thing is, and I think that's an important thing just to speak on in general, is that people need to read their leases.
Yeah. We were talking about this. Did you hear that? He says he thinks that 90%, what was your percentage, that 90% of the people do not read the leases or the contracts they sign?
Oh no, truly.
Oh,
Like
it
I
is
would highly
freaking
recommend
terrifying.
that people
Well,
still
and I
don't.
think a lot of it has to do with, going back to the internet stuff, is because you get sent in a DocuSign,
DocuSign.
and it's click,
Right.
click, click, click,
Right,
done.
that's definitely what it is.
So you don't take the time, like if you don't have the paper copy. But I mean, I think, having done property management for a really long time, there were plenty of times where they would come in and ask a question and would be like, well, it's right in your lease.
Yeah.
Like, it's like on page 1. So I would say, that is, read what your lease says. Your lease probably explains all the different things, because landlords are thinking about that too.
Yes.
Landlords are aware of what the market is. I agree with Nikki to step back and, at 45 days, you're probably in auto renewal, but ask, what are your options? Are there options for me? Can I do a 3-month lease? Can I do a month to month? You might pay more for the month to month, but weigh that decision. Like you can, if you know what the amount is, then is it worth it to me to pay $200 more a month for 3 months so that I can buy a house
Right.
as a long-term investment.
Have you ever seen the local landlord have more leverage than they do right now?
No. I don't know. I mean,
Some of
yeah,
them do because
some
they've
of
been in
it-
the game for so long and they own
Right.
so many
I mean, I
properties
think-
that they've always had it.
Well, because of the economic climate.
yeah, they have
there's
more
no
than-
rentals, there's no housing inventory, and there's people sprinting to the area to live.
Right. I mean, I think
The
yeah.
rents are increasing faster than appreciation in in homes. Think about that.
Yeah. Well, and Sarah, that was who this question was
Yeah,
from, right?
Sarah.
So another thing to realize
Sarah, where are you
too,
watching?
is for Sarah's landlord though, or landlady or land person, whoever, right? That person is also viewing this from, okay, I'm probably not gonna have to have a large gap, but some of the things they're gonna think about is, okay, how long has Sarah or someone been in that house? What type of work might need to be done for that turnover? If it's very minimal, if that turnover is going to be really easy, then that landlord can probably raise the rent, get someone in there very, very easily and have it rented out and be making more and have a whole nother chain of 1 to 2 year lease period,
absolutely.
right? So there is room to have a conversation, especially if that person who owns the home is thinking of these things, and they should be.
Valerie Easter, welcome to the show. We love when you watch the program, Val. She says to Michael Bullock, do a 10-in-1 arm. We did a 5-in-1 arm when I purchased my first home in Florida at 5.75% and adjusted down to 2.375%. Things will change in a decade and you can refi into a fixed rate. That's what you said as
Yeah.
well,
That's a good
Amanda.
plan.
Nice.
So this is our last topic for the show here, and this is from Grayson, who watches the show all the time. Can the panel speak about a community where Albemarle County and Charlottesville looks like it's going to be nothing but wealthy folks and homeowners, and then the surrounding areas are going to be the folks that rent and are first-time home buyers that are servicing Charlottesville and Albemarle? Who wants to touch that?
So I think that is a big challenge. I think we've
I think that's
touched
what's
on
happening.
that on many, many shows, right? And there are a lot of organizations, a lot of people who are working to try to make sure that doesn't happen. And it is a very big, real challenge that we're facing. And there are a lot of people trying to make progress on that. The challenge being is that the progress on that is slow. Right? We have habitat, we have different real estate tax breaks that you can apply for, but even then, that only goes to so much and it only applies to so many people, right? So it's a matter of, I would say, just trying to be part of that change. Find an organization that's making a difference and be in it, because I don't think anybody actually wants that to be the case, right? I haven't had a conversation with anyone who does, right? That's just not where we're leaning. It's not the type of world we live in.
Who wants to, what's your take on that, Courtney?
Yeah, it's a complex issue with multifaceted, solution. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. It's interesting, Jerry, that you mentioned these like shopping centers. And my kids, whenever they're like, oh, look at the mall, everything, that's kind of a thing of the past. And they're like, and they've heard about the affordable housing. They're like, Mom, why don't they make those affordable housing? So it's funny, like instinctually, they're like, hey, there's a problem. Hey, maybe this could be part of the solution. So it's
Okay, can I
interesting.
just point out that her children are between the ages of 4 and 13, and they've got really great solutions for this stuff.
I know, and that struck me. I was like, this may be my 11-year-old. You talk about your 17-year-old. So my 11-year-old, I could talk about him like he's just got like he sits and reads the Wall Street Journal like every morning.
Wow.
And I'm like, you want your coffee next? Well, he's on TV. But like, so he just
Amanda's
kinda has-
oldest and your 11-year-old are going to like cure cancer over here.
Anyway, but
I feel like
all
we've got a
different-
future president and
But
vice
like,
president there.
I like to, they're growing up with the real estate, and and then my 13-year-old told me this morning something about Great Commission. He's like, oh yeah, Mom, you're thinking about the commission. I was like, what? Like you hear these terms, these real estate terms. I was like, oh, I didn't think about it. But anyway, but the solution that there's the kids are seeing like, oh well, how can we solve this affordable house? So it is an issue. We're going to keep working on it. I think Habitat for Humanity. I think Southern Homes of Development. They're trying to work with some of these organizations to try to.
Piedmont, I mean, there are all
Piedmont
sorts
housing,
of, yeah.
I think that what they've said is correct. I mean, I think the issue, when you boil it down, is the dirt's really expensive.
Yeah, the dirt is-
And so when you're looking at, how to solve it, it's it's very complex. It's not, there is no magic bullet that's gonna fix it. Again, we're a desirable place to live. People want to live here. So there's going to always be people coming to the area. And, unfortunately, the economics is supply and demand. And if there's demand for the dirt, it's going to drive the prices prices up. And I think, then you throw in the obstacles of overcoming, like with the Places 29 and all the different, new development models and, trying to contain the growth and that type of thing. I think, it's harder to get a community off the ground, so it's harder for builders to find affordable dirt to build. And I think that that there's that, where do they move to? We need the entry level and the affordable housing to start, and then where do they go? And the people that are who have already purchased in that affordable range, it's like, what do they do next? It's all related to one another, and it's all a domino sort of effect. And I think unfortunately there's no easy right answer, but I do think that there's a lot of organizations that are working to try to figure out solutions, and I also don't think that it's going to be an overnight type of thing. And I wish I knew what the magic answer was, because I'd be very well off if I could.
Yes, you would.
If I could. But yeah, there's so many things that play into that.
Danny
unfortunately.
O'Day, watching the program, man works for Politico. He says there are towns like that throughout the Rockies, largely ski resort towns, and their local community infrastructure is largely collapsing under the weight of supporting the needs of the wealthy few in the urban core. That's something I think about as a husband and father. I would definitely love as an eclectic and diverse as a community as possible. So we're all mindful of this. It's just not going to be fixed overnight. How about some closing thoughts for the viewers and listeners? Nikki Chambliss, Courtney, and Amanda. Nikki, why don't you go first?
Okay, so I think final thoughts on this. I'm going to land with where we were just talking, and that is that I think it's a matter of we as a community have to decide that we want something different, right? And I think there are enough of us in this community that do, and we have to be willing to put our actions and our intentions and our money where our mouths are. So, and I think that's important, and that money factor is a big thing. While the economics of it make it challenging, the reality of it is that we are not what I think it's the Freakonomics people call it econs, right? Economics are based on these people that don't really exist because we're not all rational. I think it might be safe to say that none of us are fully rational. So the economics of it, if we want to use that as an argument against this working, it falls short, right? Sure, the basics work, but when people gather and they decide that what they want for their city is for the people who work here and support it and build the infrastructure that makes our city run, that we want them to be able to live here, then I think solutions happen. Not magically, it takes work, and I think we're here for it.
Well said. Well said, Courtney.
Yeah, and I think that we're in this together. during the pandemic, the UVA had we're in this together, and sort of having that community aspect is really crucial because we do have a great place. People want to come to Seville because it is great, and I think, speaking, to the first-time home buyer, there is hope. I know I'm the eternal optimist, but there's a lot of work from all of us to make it happen.
Well said, Amanda.
Yeah, I think history proves that there's hope in the market. Going back to my dad started, it was 18% interest rates, and he left a salaried teaching position and went into real estate and made twice his salary the first 6 months because homes were selling. They were there was 18% interest rates, and the average home sale price was $55,000. So there is hope out there. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. Charlottesville's a great place to live. I totally agree with Nikki that it's about getting involved and looking for solutions. I just don't think that, unfortunately, I don't think it's an overnight fix, but I do think that there are things that we can do to make it better.
Oh, can I add one thing?
Sure, please.
There's a thing, and I don't actually know where it's from, but I heard it from Quentin and Pam. And that is that we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in 5. So be careful that these things seeming so big and insurmountable, that we're not trying to do so much in this 1 year that we forget that we can do so very much in 5. Because that's a life-changing difference for so many people when we keep that in perspective.
Perfect way to close.
That is an awesome way to close.
awesome.
That was awesome.
Very well done. We thank Judah Wickhauer as the director of the program. This is Real Talk on a Monday, presented by Keller Williams Alliance. For Nikki, Courtney, and Amanda, I'm Jerry. The I Love Seville show is up in 53 minutes, guys. Have a good morning. Take care. 1 second. You'll tell us when the mics are off here.